6. And we're going to jump all the way to the end of the book of Acts. And we're going to look at Acts chapter 28, seeing the conclusion of this book. And really, as far as a recap, there's not a whole lot of events that happens between the last lesson and really the end of the chapter. But there are some key moments. And really what we see is that Paul, as his ministry continues, we see that Paul really has this desire to reach Rome. He wants to bring the gospel to Rome, and he feels that the Holy Spirit is telling him that he needs to get the gospel to high-ranking Roman officials. Because in Paul's mind, if you can, all roads lead to Rome. If you can get the gospel to Rome, then you can get the gospel to the ends of the earth. And so that's Paul's heart. Doesn't know how he's going to get there. He does know that it's going to be difficult. He does know that his life could be on the line. But for him, it's worth it. Because his whole purpose is just to get the gospel to the ends of the earth. And so that's what's taking place in between Acts chapter 17 and Acts chapter 28. We see Paul, he makes his way back to Jerusalem, and as he's there, some Pharisees see him around the temple, and they see him with a Gentile. And they think, well, Paul is bringing Gentiles into the temple. That wasn't true, but that's just what they assumed. And so they arrest Paul, and they beat him, and they bring him to be put on trial. And Paul, at this point, begins to use his trump card. He technically is a Roman citizen. So he sees this as his opportunity. They really want to put him to death, and he doesn't want to cause trouble. He doesn't want to bring harm to the Jewish people, but he does want to get the gospel to Rome. So he uses his Roman citizenship as a way to appeal to Caesar. And so he uses that, and he's sent on mission to meet with King Felix and King Agrippa, and he's finally, it's really, if you're kind of reading through the book of Acts, it's a lot of recorded speeches. It may not seem like it's an exciting time in the book of Acts, but I love Paul's moment before King Agrippa, because he's there, he's making it to Rome, and he's presenting the gospel as clearly, as emphatically as possible to a high-ranking Roman official. As you read through Acts chapter 17 through 28, you kind of see that everything that Paul has set out to do, it's happening. He's run his race. He's ran his race. He's done and fulfilled what God has called him to do. And even though he had to be beaten, even though he about lost his life, even though he was hated and persecuted and shipwrecked, and with all the beatings and the whippings and the imprisonments that he endured, he made it. And Paul would say all of it was worth it. We could get the gospel to the ends of the earth. And so as we come to Acts chapter 28, we conclude with Acts, and I want you to see that scene of Paul in Rome. He's under house arrest. He can have visitors, so he's preaching the gospel to the Jews in Rome, hoping to just get the gospel out further. And really, in particular, I want you to see how Acts 28, it just ends. There's no concluding statement. It doesn't say, and this is what happened to Paul, and this is what happened to the apostles, and there's not the end of Acts. It just stops, kind of suddenly, kind of briefly. And I think that is very strategic. I think Luke, as he closes the book of Acts out, he wants us to see that the book of Acts hasn't ended. The work that Jesus began to do in his life, the work that Jesus continued to do through the presence of the Holy Spirit through the apostles in the church, is now being continued through you and I today. So I hope you've enjoyed this study through Acts, and hope you enjoyed tonight's study as well. But just take some time to look at Paul's ministry in Rome, and we'll see you next semester.